What's up everyone, Michael here with another topic video. Apparently Valve is finally introducing out-of-region taxes. So if you're outside of the US, you're finally going to get taxed for your digital goods. And this is going to be affecting a few major regions. The most notable one that a lot of media is kind of picking up at the moment is actually Australia, because it's going to be the first one in July. And basically that is going to be a 10% increase in the VATs, or is it called GST there? GST, I guess. I don't know a lot about the taxes, and you'll probably notice that by the end of this video, but essentially, basically, it's going to be a 10% increase on any prices within the Steam games, and this is going to be fairly significant for a lot of people, considering Australian prices are already really expensive. Now, I do have a list of the other regions that are going to be effective. Just let me get into a safe spot so I can end up reading them off. I apologize for that. But the other regions that are going to be affected in March are Switzerland, South Korea, Japan, New Zealand, Iceland, South Africa, and India. Now, there are a few others that may be affected in the future as well, but basically this is Valve finally in placing a lot of these sort of digital taxes that people have been kind of getting away with either not paying or having it sort of skirted around in the past. Now, when it comes to Steam, I don't necessarily know how they've been handling these sort of taxes, because they do have to pay them. So I think most of it's been kind of like swallowing the cost and like, you know what, whatever, we'll just take the hit. It's not that much. And so they've probably been doing that, but they finally probably came up with a framework that's going to end up working for their product. And so they're like, you know what, we'll implement it into the store, and so they don't have to pay that cost anymore. Or it could be the fact that maybe they just didn't collect it whatsoever, and then these governments would obviously be kind of hammering it in. Now, I didn't know they already didn't do this. I thought they would, because here in the US, at least in Washington State, we have a law that basically, if it's an online storefront, it has to pay for sales tax, because we have a sales tax. Basically, when you buy a product, you pay a certain percentage from that cost, and it goes to the government as a cast. We also have some income tax and stuff like that, but most of it comes down to the sort of, you know, price tag of things, basically. And we always add, I think it's 8.7% right now, which is kind of, it sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's not 10%. That's kind of a lot. I don't know. So maybe it's actually lower than a lot of other places. But regardless, you know, it is one of those things that I've been doing for quite a while. Now, there was a time to where we didn't have to pay it for a little bit, but it was after Congress was like, you know what, we need to pass these laws, because digital stuff, you know, people were buying things off of Amazon and not paying taxes. And, you know, like it or not, government needs money to function. And so, of course, they're going to be trying to do that. Now, a lot of people are looking at this as a negative thing. And I mean, for the most part, yes, it is going to be a negative thing, because you're going to be paying more for your games, especially if you're on Australia. Now, Australian prices are kind of significant to this. And the reason why the media is kind of grabbing onto that one specifically is because there's one major problem with this that really is kind of overlooked a lot by Valve, I would feel. And it's kind of like very significant to the topic at hand. And this is the fact that in certain regions, such as Australia, and I'm not saying, you know, Australia is the only one. There are other ones. I don't know about Switzerland, but I think that is one. I can't confirm that or not. I think it was, but I'm not 100% sure, because it doesn't state in the article that I have up over here. But basically, it doesn't actually show it in their native currency, so it doesn't show it in Australian dollars. Instead, it shows it in USD. And that means they're buying products in the US dollar. And this probably doesn't seem like a big deal to somebody who's in the US, because like, all right, whatever, they just have to do like the math and see how much it's worth. But the thing is, you also have to pay conversion rates, because they're actually buying it in USD. It's not like, oh, we're just displaying it in this one. It's not like, you know, when Microsoft had their whole ordeal where they first introduced the store shop, and it's like displaying in the wrong stuff. I had mine displaying in yen, because I actually had it in the Japanese language for a while, which was hilarious to see when I went into the store. It's like, oh yeah, yen, but really it's gonna cost USD. That's not the case. You're actually buying it in USD, which means you have to pay for conversion rates. And these conversion rates can actually be fairly expensive and can add a fair amount to it. Now, I don't have experience with the Australian to US dollar, and I think the Australian dollar, according to some of the comments I was seeing below some of these articles, was, you know, oh, well, the Australian dollar is going up, so that's going to help with the cost a little bit. But the thing is, you know, conversion rates or exchange rates are always changing, and it adds a little bit of uncertainty to the cost. So you're never 100% sure. And it can also be fairly expensive, even if, let's say, the conversion rate is 1-to-1. So, like, let's say for, let's say Japan, because I've bought in yen before. And so the yen rate would be about 100 yen for a dollar. And I was like, that seems fair. But it ended up actually being $1.25 for 100 yen because of those conversion rates and the cost for conversion. Because there's not just the conversion rate. Even if the currencies are 100% even, you have to pay somebody to convert that currency. And therefore, you have to either go to agencies, use middlemen like PayPal or something along those lines. And it ends up increasing that cost even more. And so this is extremely unfortunate, because it's just adding more cost. And that's going to be 10% more plus whatever that conversion conversion rate percentage is going to end up being, which is extremely unfortunate. So if you are somebody in Australia or one of these other regions, if you see a game on sale before July or March, probably pick it up so you can save a little bit of dough. But at the same time, this is kind of something that I'm surprised Valve wasn't already doing. It actually surprised me when I saw this because I'm like, wait, they weren't already doing this? Like, tax evasion is pretty hard to get away with, and I have a feeling that Valve has just been, stomaching the cost to begin with. They're just like, you know what, whatever, we can take it. And that's what they were doing with sales tax for a little while. It took them a while to implement these sales tax, and I figure that they finally just got to wait in their storefront to actually implement these prices without affecting the consumer all too much, although it is affecting the consumers because it's making it more expensive. But I mean, like, on the usage end, as in it's going to display with the cost. Now in the US here in Washington, basically what we see is a straight up storefront cost, and then we get taxes added onto it later when we go to checkout. And so we'll see the $9.99, like it's $10 something, and then we'll be like, all right, you know what, I can afford that. But then when you go to checkout, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you got to pay your 8.7% tax rate or whatever. And so it's like, oh yeah, but it's really going to cost like $10.47 or something like that. It's it's one of those cases where it's like, that's kind of annoying. And so I hope that the implementation that they have for these other regions is it will actually show like what it's going to cost, because here in the US we have a different cost per state. And so some states won't actually have this sales tax, and so they don't actually have to pay the sales tax. While other regions, such as Washington, where I live, you do have to pay the sales tax. And so that's kind of it. So I hope they kind of streamline it for other regions. But this also kind of brings up the point of, why don't they just make it so you can buy things in other, currencies? Maybe it's because Valve doesn't want to eat that kind of conversion cost, because a lot of companies like Amazon will end up just eating that conversion cost anyways because they are a US company. Or maybe they'll have sections within different regions that would end up kind of taking that money. So they'd have like one part of the company that is in one region that would end up doing that sort of financial business and yada yada. So like I believe they have an Australian version of certain services like Amazon. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that is a thing. So I don't know, maybe Valve just doesn't have the corporation money to actually do that, and that wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. But once again, it already surprises me that they didn't do these taxes, so I don't know, they could end up coming up with anything. But it is going to be fairly annoying, and it kind of sucks for people to end up having to pay more money. But at the same time, it's taxes. You can't really blame Valve for it. You got to blame your government for that, and go ahead and vote for things if you want it changed. I don't know how politics works, so don't get me started on all of that. But regardless, that's how it is. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Michael with a topic video. We've been talking about how they're actually implementing taxes finally on like the storefront, which is surprising. Like I said, it actually surprised me when I saw it. I'm like, why weren't they already doing this? So, you shouldn't be too surprised. It was just a matter of time because, they're becoming a bigger storefront. So they're going to get pressured more, and they're going to have more costs depending on how many people are actually buying on there. I do want to mention real quick, though, that I did see people in comments of these sort of articles saying that some storefronts can end up being cheaper in Australian regions depending on where you live and stuff, because you won't have to pay those conversion rates. So do end up checking out the math for that if you are looking to get the best deal, because some of the prices that he was listing was like, $10 to $20 cheaper, which I don't know what the conversion rate is going to be on that, but that could end up being fairly significant. I know I like to save any money that I possibly can, so that's a thing that I do. But yeah, anyways, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this one. You can also check out my impressions review series. I did one of Assault Android Cactus. It is a super awesome top-down shooter, and it is really, really fun. So go ahead and check that out if that sounds interesting to you. You can also end up checking out my other topic videos. I do these on pretty much a daily basis. Sometimes there's just nothing interesting going on, so I won't do that, but I'll have something else there, like a Let's Play or some other type of design view sort of video where I'll be talking about the industry. So you can end up checking out my other content. Make sure to like and subscribe for all of that type of stuff if you want to end up getting all this topic stuff on the daily basis. Also, leave your comments below. Are you in Australia or one of these regions that will be affected? Is this something that you're worried about, or is this kind of just what you expected to end up happening? And I know some people are mad at Valve for it, and I think the reason we should be mad at Valve is the fact that they don't already do the whole conversion for you. I think it would be nice if they ended up doing conversions for us and be like, hey, you know what, it's going to cost this much, and this is the sort of thing. Like when I buy things, like let's say I buy something off of a Japanese site or something like that, I always have to do the conversion rate and be like, all right, well, how's this gonna... It's annoying. So I can't imagine having to do that for literally everything you want to buy digitally. That would be extremely frustrating. So I hope Valve ends up introducing a way to get around that. But I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts? Do you think it matters too much, or do you think that it's actually okay the way it is? Or are you kind of with the general opinion of it just sucks the way it is and it should be better? I always think things should be better, so maybe that's just me. But regardless, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Oh, and also, I forgot to mention the game in the background since I don't do it in my intro anymore, and I'm supposed to do it in my outro because I'm changing things up. Sorry about that. That's going to be a transitional thing. The game in the background is Spiral Knights. It is actually a really, really fun MMO that almost died, actually. I have a video that's fairly old on it, and you'll find it. It's, crap, what was the other game I was talking about? I think it was it Eloa? No, it wasn't Eloa. I don't know. There was another game that I was talking about that was closing down, and I was like, oh, well, it's not closing down, and then I found out that Spiral Knights wasn't closing down. Basically, it's owned by a new studio and stuff like that. It's not that important. You can find it, whatever. Anyways, thank you guys. Sorry for this little thing. I need to get better at these outros. I am working on that every day now, so I'll get there eventually.